Hey fans, so here we are in Train Sim World, and today we're going to be reviewing the new Long Island Railroad M3 EMU DLC from Dovetail Games. So without further ado, let's load up this scenario, the Hicksville Handler, and get started. I'll be going through my thoughts on the train and showing you how to handle it in terms of running the train and such. I'm fairly satisfied with the way the train performs. It is quite realistic in that regards. There's a few minor things that I'm nitpicky over, but that's just me being nitpicky. So as we board the train and start, I'll go into more detail about that. So as you can see, the model is very nice. A lot of detail. A lot of detail, especially the underbody equipment and whatnot. You can see the traction motor gearboxes and third rail shoes and all this stuff. Air compressors, tanks, air conditioning units. I'm only walking to the rear of the train right now to set up the marker lights on the rear, because I don't think they're on by default. I haven't checked. They are not on. Alright, so we gotta fix that real quick. Alright, marker lights in the rear have been turned on. Let's head back to the forward cab to start the scenario. So you can see the interior is also pretty nice. You can't go into the restroom though, which is kind of sad, but I've never really been impressed with the restrooms on the M3s anyway. They've always seemed kind of cramped to me. I would never voluntarily use it. I would always prefer to use the restroom on an M7. Alright, back in the head car. Let's go ahead and set this train up. So, in terms of setting the train up, it's quite similar to the M7s. What's nice is that you can actually turn the interior lights off, which is interesting. Unfortunately, the buzzer does not work. Brake test complete. Let's bring her up to that signal. Alright, as we wait for the signal to clear, I will turn on the cab signaling and the alerter system, which is located on this back wall here. So you have to flip these two breakers. Now, obviously, one of the gripes I have with this is the way the train sounds are coded in. Obviously, they're reusing a lot of stuff from the M7s. Specifically, I think the horn is reused, which is disappointing because, as far as I'm aware, the horn is actually a synthetically generated sound. So it's not an actual recording, it's just a computer generated sound that matches the tone of the real life RS2M. Also, there's a weird glitch with the horn in that the cab volume is fine, but when you open the window, the volume goes down for some reason. I think that's strange. There's your alert sound, which is accurate, so that I'm okay with. The cab itself, I'm very happy with. It's very detailed. It functions, I would say, probably 95% functionality here. I would have liked to see the track speed display above the actual speed display work. It'd be nice. That way I could turn off the heads-up display and have the train actually tell me what the track speed is. It's weird, the HVAC sounds cut out. So as I stated before, there's the ATC sound. And well, as I stated before, as I was saying, I'm very happy with the way the train performs in terms of physics and stuff. The traction physics and the braking physics are quite accurate. Data was supplied directly from Long Island Railroad to Dovetail Games for that, so the amperage curves and the acceleration plus the braking physics are about as true to life to the actual M3s as they possibly could be. Very happy about that. I'll go more into the acceleration physics once we actually bring this train into service at Jamaica. My only quip about the braking physics is that the brake setting that I'm currently at, well, I was at 25%, that should be the minimum brake rate when you're in the minimum brake position. Otherwise, the braking physics are okay. You'll notice that the dynamic brakes are blended in with the air brakes, which is nice. If you see the if you watch the indicator lights and also the air gauge, when I throw the brake into minimum, the air applies for about a second or two while the dynamic brake circuit is set up, and then it releases when the dynamic brakes kick in. It's really neat. So a little bit of discussion about the propulsion part of this train. The M3 is propelled by 4 direct current motors that are rated at 160 horsepower apiece. They are controlled via cam drum that regulates the current from the third rail through resistors and shunts to the motors. That's how train speed and acceleration is controlled. So, of course, as you are operating the train, there's a few things to remember. Just with any other cam controlled train, if you need to back off the throttle to a lower notch, you must shut off completely first before you come back up. Otherwise, the setting of the propulsion will remain in the notch that you left it in, regardless of where the notch actually is when you start to back off. Additionally, if you wrap the controller all the way from coast to P4 from a standing stop, the acceleration progression is automatic. The control logic will start in P1 and slowly notch the train up to P2, P3, and P4. As delivered, the M3s did have a much higher starting acceleration. I believe they started up to 2 miles per hour per second. But it was found that the rapid advancement of the cam drum into parallel caused the current draw from the third rail to be unacceptably high. So the P4 and P3 rates were deactivated. So as currently set up, the train only accelerates at a maximum of a P2 rate, which is 1.0 miles per hour per second, regardless of how far forward the throttle is advanced. Alright, so some of you might know the M3s do not have battery-powered interior lights in the normal sense. These trains were built back in the day when if the train gapped out, the interior lights would also shut off. So let's see if that happens. Actually, our routing wasn't ideal for that. Maybe when we leave this station, we'll gap out and we'll see if the interior lights actually shut off. So we're a couple minutes late, which is probably due to the fact that I ran to the rear of the train to turn on the rear marker lights. I wish that was something that was more of a default thing. The marker lights should be on both ends of the train when you start up, but it's not a huge deal, I guess. Another interesting glitch I have issues with is that they reused the M7 door sounds. At least for the door opening sequence, you can sort of hear those M7 door motors, which is obviously not accurate. I mean, once again, minor. So there's still too much third rail here for us to actually see if the gap out of the interior lights is functional. I can say that the gap out of the propulsion system is functional, so when the propulsion system does gap out on the pair that you are in, you will see the ammeter needle return to center, which is nice. So that's how we'll know if the train's gapped out or not. So as far as I'm aware, the gauge lights are on by default. so you can actually shut the gauge lights off, which is, I'm okay with that. It's not a, definitely far from the biggest issue on this train. So I'm experiencing very inconsistent frame rates. I was up to about 30 frames when we first started, coming out of Vanderbilt Yard. Now I'm holding steady at around 17 to 20 frames, which I find to be interesting considering there should be less. Maybe there's more scenery here because of the trees and whatnot. But also because I'm recording with Bandicam, so that also hurts my frame rate. When I'm not recording, I consistently get about 25% more frame rate than I would with Bandicam active and recording. So I'd probably be hovering around 25 to 30 frames now instead of 16 to 20 frames if I was not recording. That being said, I am still using my old laptop for this, so it's got an older graphics card in it, the 860M. I am thinking about upgrading fairly soon. I'm not ready to commit to a $2,000 unit just yet, which is what I'm looking at with the new solid state drives and whatnot. Okay, this is New Hyde Park. I believe the next stop will be, I don't know if they're going to make a stop at Maryland Avenue or not. We'll see. Might just go straight to Mineola. I don't remember what the scenario does. Alright, we will stop at Maryland Avenue. That's cool. Alright, so as you pay attention to the acceleration, you'll see the camera jerk a little bit. Each one of those jerks is representative of the cam drum advancing positions. So that large jerk that you saw at between, I believe it's like 17 and 20 miles an hour, that's the cam drum advancing from the series position to the parallel position, which results in a jump in current and a temporary spike in acceleration. So that signal downgrade is really annoying here. It really should not be there. So anyways, about the acceleration, that is very accurate acceleration physics. So that is probably the part of this train that I'm most satisfied with, outside the fact that it looks real nice. But then again, I've never really had an issue with Dovetail's modeling department. I've really more been concerned about their physics, and more so than the physics, the sounds. As you might have noticed, the iconic brake release sound is also missing, which is a fairly big disappointment for me. I think that's one of the features of the M3 that I think I and a lot of you have grown to love and be fond of, is that whooshing noise when the brakes release. So I wish they would have actually incorporated that sound. Now, there's another bug. As you might notice, my brakes are in minimum, and the doors did not open when I tried to open the doors. So there's a little bit of a carryover, I think, that there's like a minimum brake pipe, a minimum brake cylinder pressure required to activate the door circuit. That I really don't think that should be the case on this train. Prototypically, I believe the door train line is active as long as the controller is in a coast or higher brake position than coast, and the train is in V0 state. So that's another one of those tiny bugs that I have an issue with. Here we go into parallel. Alright, so as you can see, when I was turning on and off the lights, you do notice a difference in the cab lighting. So if this train does indeed have the interior lights cut out when the train gaps, you should see that change, in addition to the ammeter returning to zero. Not zero, but center. For those of you who don't know what I was talking about by the ammeter, there it is. The little gauge with the green and red quadrants and the little needle that is currently pointing down in the green quadrant. You'll notice if you pay attention to that the ammeter also does sort of reflect the traction motor current. And we are going to overrun Mineola. That's okay. As we accelerate away from the station, obviously you can see a large third rail gap here where the Oyster Bay branch diverges off to the left. So we should gap out as we're accelerating. You'll see the ammeter needle return to center. And hopefully we'll see the lights cut out too, but I'm not keeping my hopes up. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. That brief, like, second and a half when the needle went to center, when we were in that gap. So, as far as I'm aware, when you're in the cab, the lights do not actually turn off. I haven't checked to see if they turn off when you're in the exterior camera, but part of me doubts that. So, yep, there's another bug to add to the list. So let me actually pay attention now so we don't overrun the next station. Too busy showing you guys things. Alright, so I think that's probably overall my thoughts on the M3. If you have any comments, obviously feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to address them if there's questions and whatnot. But for the rest of this run, let's take a look at some of the exterior views. Alright, so there you have it. Those are the M3 electric multiple units for Long Island Railroad in Train Sim World 2020. Let me know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned for more videos in the near future. Thanks for watching. Till next time, see ya.